Welcome to Linear Light podcast section. Visit our website linearlight.com.
Light and Talk with Alex Shaw. Hospitality, not only accommodation but also experience.
Our guest today is the design director of Maya Studio in Dubai. A warm welcome to Alex Shaw.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here.
Today, we'll talk about the world of hospitality, a world that has changed a lot during the last decades. It's not just about accommodation anymore, but about the experience of the guest. What are we referring to when we talk about experience?
As you very well said, hotels have developed into something much larger than just an accommodation. You can see how brands and operators are moving towards specific offerings and niche markets to differentiate themselves. What they sell is not a nice room and a good breakfast anymore, but an experience, right? Let's say this experience is a sequence of perceptions and emotions a guest feels when they stay at a nicely developed hotel or resort. Logically, all design disciplines, be it architecture, interiors, landscape, and for sure lighting, play a huge role in supporting these experiences and triggering those emotions. Aside from the functional aspect, lighting should subconsciously connect the user with the brand.
Which are, in your opinion, the key elements that determine the design of light in hospitality?
One of the key elements that determine the overall design, not just lighting, is of course a geographical context. It's not the same a forest retreat than a ski resort or a beach one. The second one, I guess, would be the cultural context. The forest resort I mentioned before wouldn't be the same on a tea plantation in Sri Lanka, or in the Black Forest in Germany, or in the Amazon. A third one would certainly be the target market. Is the hotel millennial hipster oriented? Is it a business hotel or a historical one?
How can light affect the guest?
It affects the guests on many levels, not just the purely technical ones. At the end of the day, good lighting design has to complement the architecture and interior design, but most importantly, it reinforces the story that the brand wants to tell. Imagine, for instance, a lobby with beautiful finishes and geometries, but lit with a forest of downlights that makes the space look flat and uninteresting, and worst of all, cheap. And you do see that a lot.
Is it important to recreate an environment reminiscent of the domestic one, or is it better to study a totally different concept that allows the guest to dive into a new atmosphere?
We don't necessarily need to recreate a domestic environment, although it's always a safe bet to create a cozy and homey feel. What we need to do above all is understand the brief, the space the architects or interior designers are generating, and consequently design with light the experience the guests will have. It could be that the underlying intention is not to feel safe and relaxed, but excited or even intrigued by a certain space.
Hotels contain within them several micro areas which have very specific features. Which are the main ones?
We could talk hours about that, but I would focus on the broader arrival experience. That is, from the moment you approach the entrance, get off the cab, walk into the lobby and head to the reception. This is the first impression you're giving and will impact greatly on the overall opinion of the establishment. That's why it's so important that all design disciplines are aligned towards a common goal and narrative. The other area would be at the opposite end of the journey, which is the guest room. We need to keep it neat, simple, and practical, especially with the controls. If guests need a 15-minute trial and error to figure out the lights, we have failed as lighting specialists.
Which is the most appropriate color temperature for each area? And also, are there particularly suitable optics to be used?
All depends on what type of ambience you want to create and emotions you want to trigger. But in hospitality, we usually lean towards the warmer side of the spectrum, that is from 2200 to 2700 Kelvin. In terms of optics, it's very hard to give you the right answer since each project is a world of its own.
Are there minimum illuminance levels that we need to consider?
One thing are the standards, which are usually mood killers. Something we always have to work around, otherwise all hotels would look like petrol stations. In terms of purely perception, it's hard to define minimums. It's again about how you want guests to feel. A 3-star city hotel certainly wouldn't have the same illuminance levels as a resort in the middle of the desert. The moods are different, the pace is different, even your eye adaptation is different. When it comes down to the bare minimum, what do you need from the lighting in a corridor? Not to bump into walls, read the room number and see where to swipe your keycard. All the rest is mood building.
More than exhaustive explanation. Mr. Shaw, it has been a real pleasure to have you as a guest. Thank you very much for sharing with us your passion for light.
Most welcome. Thanks a lot for having me.
Welcome to Linear Light podcast section. Visit our website linearlight.com.